Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today is October 21st, 2024. And today on our call, we have the team from RIWI Corp, including the CEO, Greg Wong. RIWI trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol RIWI, and it also trades on the OTC under RWCRF. The company is currently trading at 80 cents with about 18 million shares outstanding, or about a $14.5 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thanks a lot, Trevor. Yeah, we've had Greg on a few times, so happy to have him back. This time to talk about an acquisition, the latest sort of update and sort of big deal with the company right now. So happy to have you here, Greg. We're going to dive into some of the details around the acquisition, but before we do that, Greg, maybe remind everybody that isn't too familiar with the business what RIWI is all about.
Sure. And just before I talk about RIWI, I have two other people on the phone with me that may jump in at different points. We have Travis Campbell, who some of you might be familiar with as our CFO, and Garrett Goldschmidt, who just joined us, who's the founder and the original CEO of our acquisition, Theorem Reach. So a little bit about RIWI. So RIWI, we are a full-service market research firm. We were founded in 2009 and invented a technology called Random Domain Intercept Technology, or RDIT, which is a way of intercepting people online and providing them a survey without collecting any PII information. Since 2009, we've collected over 2 billion survey responses in 229 countries and 35 different languages. Since then, we've also grown to make some other acquisitions that provided us programmatic sampling, which was a way of bringing in survey respondents from various publishers and then connecting them directly to survey marketplaces. And we also have started developing our own surveys and collecting our own data, which we then license to subscribers who want information on various things such as macroeconomic trends, consumer confidence, could be political issues, and a number of other things. So that's who we are, and that's what we do. From a revenue pre-acquisition, we were called around trailing 12 months, around 4.2 million USD in revenue. We had no debt, 18 million shares outstanding, I think Paul mentioned, and we were every quarter either break even, slightly profitable, or had a slight loss depending on the quarter. Paul, anything else that we should add from a company?
No, you know what? Let's leave it with that right now. You guys made a significant acquisition, more or less double the size of the business with this acquisition. Garrett's here with the company, so I'll leave it with you. Maybe give us an idea of why you made this acquisition, what the company does, and then we can get into some of the term or deal terms.
Sure. So I'll talk about synergies in a minute, but maybe I can ask Garrett to talk a little bit about what Theorem Reach does and who they are as a company, and I'll ask Travis to talk about the consolidated numbers a little bit, and then I can talk about synergies and what this means strategically kind of on the back end of that. So with that, I'll turn over to Garrett.
Yeah, absolutely. So Theorem Reach is a two-sided marketplace. We connect clients looking for data and insights with users across hundreds of websites and mobile apps. All transactions are handled programmatically in real time, much like a stock exchange with buyers and sellers. We founded in 2014. We've served clients in 53 countries to deliver programmatic respondents to clients across all major brands and researchers. We've had approximately 3.9 million USD revenue in 2023, with 433,000 USD of adjusted EBITDA. Just a quick note, we joined RIWI because the market research industry is experiencing a digital transformation that we ourselves couldn't tackle alone as a middleman in the supply chain. Methodologies across all companies have evolved, and programmatic platforms like ours are one of the new areas that can deliver global reach and speed. So we believe our path to success is to own the end-to-end client experience, which is what RIWI can offer with this acquisition.
And Garrett, just so the team here or the people on the call get a sense of scale, can you talk a little bit about how many people you have in the company so they understand a little bit the kind of revenue per employee type?
Sure. We've been a bootstrapped small team of 5 full-time staff over the last 11 years. Some people have gone in, some people have gone out, but average revenue per employee is about 800 to 900,000, depending on which year you're looking at.
So I think the important thing for this is we have the ability to grow this business without necessarily needing to grow employees. So 800 to 900 now, we should be able to get that even more north. And then Travis, maybe you can just talk a little bit about what the consolidated kind of revenue and kind of profitability views would look like.
Sure. As you mentioned, Greg, our trailing 12 months revenue is about 4.2 million. When you bring in Theorem Reach, we'll be north of $8 million USD. In terms of profitability, they are going to add 300,000 to 400,000 just out of the gate of EBITDA. And I think we're going to talk about some of the synergies that we're expecting to see. But in terms of our run rate profitability, that's extremely helpful to get us to that point.
Right. So one of the things we committed to the market is that we would be break even on a run rate basis from Q4 on. With the acquisition of Theorem Reach, we expect that to happen on an EBITDA basis. Now, there may be some below the lines in Q4, some one-time charges that will negate some of that as far as, just transaction-related costs, legal fees, those type of things. But on an operating level, we should be profitable on a go-forward basis. Looking at this strategically, RIWI is committed to growth both organically and through acquisition. And we are building a platform, a market research platform that combines quantitative research, qualitative research. It includes surveys and neurotype research. So not only what you say, but also what you feel. And we wrap into that complete platform the audience meaning all the survey respondents and all the people that answer the questions that our customers need access to. What Theorem Reach does is not only gives us scale as a company, again, we're basically doubling as a company, but it also gives us access to a much deeper audience, especially in the US. The US is greater than 50% of the global demand. So just the US alone is over 50% of the global demand for market research services and access to audience. And Theorem Reach is one of the leaders in that space. So bringing in Theorem Reach enables us to scale in our existing categories, in our existing lines of business. The revenue will be considered transaction revenue. And for those that are familiar with RIWI, we classify our revenue into 3 different categories. There is recurring revenue. These are either people that subscribe to our data or people that subscribe to our platform. It is transaction revenue. Those are people that get access to our audience and leverage our audience. And then we have a project-based revenue when people hire us to do a project. Theorem Reach is squarely in the transactional revenue area. There may be some opportunity to convert some of that into recurring, but today it is squarely transactional revenue, and it helps give a scale. When you look at market research and you look at these type of platforms, people come to us not only because we have great technology, but when they have questions and they need them answered, they want access to those people that are the key people. And Theorem Reach just gives us a broader expanse, which will then drive demand also for the technology part of the platform. Also from a synergy perspective, and one of the things we've said is we are expecting to get synergies between Theorem Reach and the core RIWI business in about the range of around $20,000 a month, but it'll take us about 6 months, 9 months to get there. So by end of Q2 2025, we should see savings of around $20,000 a month in terms of technology harmonization, people harmonization, and those type of things. Let me pause there and see if there's questions, or if Garrick or Travis, you want to add anything as well.
We'll see if Garrick or Travis have anything to add. I just want to remind everybody that's listening, when you do have some questions, just feel free to use the chat function, and I'll make sure that Greg and the team get the question asked. If there's no questions from the guy or no comments from the guys, why don't we talk a bit, Greg, about the deal terms? What's nice here is my understanding is you're not issuing any shares. This is a cash transaction. You've issued some debt to do this. Maybe let's talk about all those different pieces.
Sure. So let's start with, pre-acquisition, again, around 4.2 million in revenue with 18 million shares outstanding. Post acquisition, over 8 million run rate with with still 18 million shares, so we issued no shares, so revenue per share has gone way up. And because Theorem Reach was profitable and RIWI was kind of up and down profitability, it has made us more profitable on a per share basis as well. We again 3.9 million in 2023 revenue. It should potentially be a little bit bigger this year in the Theorem Reach revenue, and we paid basically 2.4 million upfront for the business. With again, there's some holdbacks based on working capital and everything else, which gets figured out over the next 90 days. And then there's also a earnout potential of up to $1 million based on hitting very specific revenue and profitability targets in 2025. The way we financed this was partially through cash that we had ourselves and partially through issuing of debt. And issuing of debt was really through RIWI management, including Garrick himself. So the debt that was issued from myself, Travis, and Garrick. So we are, as management, financing this acquisition with a basically 1.1 million USD with a 10-year term, paid back monthly, a combination of capital and interest.
Awesome. And then you talked about some of the synergies from a cost saving standpoint, but maybe talk a little bit about the synergies in terms of operation. Like I imagine, one salesperson now is going to be able to do a lot more, sell a lot more than they could have in the past. Maybe talk about some of the operational benefits of the acquisition.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, and I'll be honest, some of these things were not even thought of until after we completed the acquisition. So I'll say we're already finding 1 week in some additional benefits, but I'll just talk about some of them. So we have some ongoing trackers and some ongoing survey business that, let's say, just for easy math, let's say our cost for a complete was $1, right? With Theorem Reach, we're identifying already that some of these things, using their platform, we're able to bring our cost down to call it 90 cents. Per complete. And if we're doing 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 completes a month, we're going to be able to get that additional margin for existing contracts. We'll just be able to improve margin on some of those deals alone. So that's one area of what I'll call margin synergies. We also have new opportunities and new customers and existing customers that we're going after, where we have additional reach now leveraging Theorem Reach. So those will be additional upsells that we can sell this platform now to some of our existing customers and future customers. There's also some customers that Theorem Reach had that RIWI did not have. And Theorem Reach was purely providing programmatic sampling, meaning that they were providing them audience. We now can go back to those customers and also offer them full service market research, the analytics, and maybe the survey platform and other things. So there's some opportunities there for us to upsell some of the Theorem Reach customers. And again, there's going to be some other potential margin synergies where when we look at the respondents that we bring in, and the publishers and all those different places that we actually bring sample in from, when you're a small vendor, you get a certain amount of supply from them. When the bigger you are, the more they'll give you a disproportionate amount of supply. So if you think about, we were buying X and Theorem Reach was buying Y, the X plus Y combined volume will now give us a multiple of that. Whether it's 20%, 30%, we're still figuring that out exactly. But, and we've talked a lot about at RIWI, our programmatic sampling, our transactional revenue was capped more by supply than demand. We have significant demand in our system that we can't fulfill because we don't have enough supply. This will enable us to get more supply as well.
And on top of the operational and revenue, top of the revenue and margin improvements that are automatically brought out of the gate. Theorem Reach has operated as a tech platform for the last 11 years. We've been able to do a lot with a very small staff purely because of taking advantage of technology to jumpstart a lot of methods of business that were handled more old school in the market research world. So we firmly believe that by bringing our operational process into the RIWI platform, there's a lot of potential opportunity to add new efficiencies, increase revenue generation, and generally build a larger footprint with our tech stack that could not have been achieved without this acquisition.
Mm-hmm. And guys, the client bases that you have sort of separately are they similar, or are you adding any different sort of clients with this acquisition?
So RIWI has a more diverse customer base today. So the primary customers for Theorem Ridge, and Garrick, correct me if I say anything incorrect here, because I don't want to speak for you, was more market research firms and a small amount of end customers that were buying the audience from Theorem Reach. RIWI was primarily selling to end customers. So they were banks and financial service firms, they were government agencies, they were retailers and packaged goods firms, they were academics. And so because that was primarily our audience, we did sell some to some market research firms, and the market research firms are definitely crossover, which makes us more important to them. But then I think RIWI had a slightly bigger, more diverse. But Garrick, please jump in.
Sure. So Theorem Reach sits in the middle of the supply chain between online market research buyers and sellers. We focus more on the audience or the sell side, and we work primarily with aggregators of research and other research agencies rather than kind of the end users. We also do not have our own dedicated sales force, opting instead to rely on programmatic APIs and technical integrations for a lot of our work. So the addition of what RIWI's platform and staff can offer to Theorem Reach and vice versa is there's an entire sales footprint we haven't touched on the Theorem Reach side. Mm-hmm. On the RIWI side, there's more understanding of the audience and more direct access to sample that will allow for a much stronger area of control in the end-to-end research process.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it sounds like you've broadened your sort of your audience, your client base. At the same time, you've increased the depth of service offerings to those clients. So, you've done a great job of sort of capturing both ends of the spectrum, I guess.
And I think it's pretty critical because if you look at the space, and this is probably universal outside of market research as well, middlemen at some point get crunched, right? If you own the supply, you're in good shape. If you own the demand side, you're in good shape. But if you're purely in the middle, at some point, you get crushed. RIWI is playing along the whole supply chain from supply through demand. And we're still a small fish in a very big pond. But if we can continue to own the entire supply chain and grow more and more of that supply chain and then grow also in breadth, then we will naturally win. And again, I always like to use, and for those of you that have heard me speak, I apologize if I've used this reference 5 times already, but I always, I grew up in the world of ERP systems, the systems that help companies manage their entire business. And if you go back in the 70s, there was a lot of people that built financial systems and supply chain systems and, warehouse optimization systems and HR systems. There was a company called SAP that came into play that was the first system that was fully integrated in real time across everything. And over the next 50 years, they are now one of the absolute largest software companies in the world because what they've done is they weren't the best at anything, but they were the best across everything. RIWI is following a similar pattern. We're going to grow organically and through acquisition to make sure we have a fully integrated end-to-end platform that can be the best across everything. We don't necessarily have to be the best in any one thing, but we'll be the best across everything. And when you can do everything for a customer, and I've been hearing this more and more from customers, we're the big easy button. I need this. Oh, I can talk to RIWI. Doesn't matter whether you're the cheapest or whether you're somewhere north of that. If I'm already papered with you, if I have an MSA with you, and I can just extend this next thing, it's just easier to work with you. And when you build trust with people, they just want to just keep leveraging your platform because you're easy, you're trusted, and you provide good quality.
Mm-hmm. So a couple questions have come in. I might as well start asking a few here. I have to ask, why did Garrick? Why did you guys sell? Why did Theorem Reach sell to RIWI?
Sure. I think the biggest opportunity that we saw, as Greg just mentioned, is there's a lot of consolidation taking place in our space over the last few years. The online market research industry has really exploded onto the scene over the last 12 to 15 years. Mainly because of programmatic access. Over time, a lot of other players with bigger pockets started entering, which really does put a major crunch on middlemen like ourselves. We saw that we had a few paths we could take, but being that we were bootstrapped, we felt that we best wanted to align ourselves with a company that we felt could grow across the entire full service spectrum. So RIWI, stood out. Greg and I have been speaking now for over 2 years. even prior to any sort of acquisition mindset, just hearing his perspective on the industry and where it can go, and knowing where I sit and how Theorem Reach can complement where RIWI is now, it just felt like a really easy, natural fit. And outside of that, the company cultures align, and there's just a lot of good synergies that we know we can bring by partnering with RIWI.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. The deal itself, there's an earnout provision in the deals. Can you maybe describe what sort of targets the company has to reach to get the earnouts?
Yeah, so we won't go into exact details, but there's two major hurdles, let's say, for the earnouts. One is revenue and one is profitability. So, when we look at, and this is kind of a general philosophy that RIWI has overall, when we make acquisitions, we come up with a valuation based on the current business. And of course, anyone who's going to sell their business, who's an entrepreneur, is always thinking about the future value of their business and where it's going. So, we recognize that, and in order to get a good deal and a win-win for everyone, we try to make sure that we say, okay, well, we'll pay for the current business as is, right? But then we'll give you the opportunity to get the rewards if in the next 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, depending on the case, you're able to, your part of the business can actually achieve those targets that you had specified. And so again, it's, we only look at revenue and profitability. There's lots of other strategic reasons to do deals and lots of other benefits, but those are always based on revenue and profitability. And so there's a significant uptick in revenue and profitability, which will hopefully be achieved through synergies together. That will be the criteria for earnouts.
Now, Greg, a question came in here that is, I'll say, slightly off topic, but it's in regards to the idea of one of your products. Now, we know that hedge funds and financial institutions use you guys all the time, but what can I guess retail investors get out of your service, if anything? Is there any kind of programs or any services that a retail investor can take advantage of?
So I will say, as a target, we've historically gone after the actual larger firms that would spend $30,000 to $50,000 a year on access. However, if any retail investor wants access, we'll put something together, a small, $100, $200 a month for a retail investor to get access to the same data. If anyone wants, just reach out to me, Garrick, or Travis afterwards. We'll be happy to get you set up, especially if you're an investor in RIWI or a potential investor in RIWI. We will find ways to accommodate and make it happen. And so.
Fantastic. So shareholding does have dividends in other ways as well. Certainly
Absolutely.
In this case. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason we haven't gone after retail investors just so is, we have a sales team that's really an enterprise sales team, right? So they don't have the capacity to go after smaller opportunities like that. It doesn't mean there's not a great demand for it. It's just that we've not been set up yet to handle it. But again, anyone on this call wants, just please reach out. We'll find a plan for you and get you hooked up. And we've done that as one-offs in the past for some other people as well.
That's awesome. Definitely likely to have a few people want to take you up on that. Greg, putting two companies together can always be challenging. Where do you see potential challenges in terms of getting everything integrated here?
Yeah, I mean, everything in business is a challenge. I think I'm less worried about challenges and more it's just there's a lot of, we made another acquisition in April of this year, which was Cool Tool. There's a lot of integration on the technology sides that just have to be figured out. And as we bring in all these, it's not so much the technology integration, it's the process integration, right? How are we going to rechange people's jobs? How are we going to refix so we reorient the whole company to who we are now versus who we were, right? We were a $4 million company that's now an $8 million company, right? When you double the company and you do different things, you just need to reorient and kind of figure out a new org structure, redefine people's roles and responsibilities, have clear targets and accountability. And I think some of that needs to be figured out. I don't know that that's a challenge. It's just roll up your sleeves, do the work. And at some point, we don't have this now, but at some point, and probably hopefully next year, depending on what budgets look like and everything else, we're looking to bring in someone who's going to be responsible for operations, ongoing process improvements and all that. So, because as we continue to go down this road, we're going to need someone who's always looking at making sure we're organized optimally. But I think that's more of just hard work than a challenge. But Garrick and Travis, is it, you guys are probably more in some of the very specific details. If you see something different, please bring it up. Please share.
I mean, I think just note from my standpoint, we've been operating as a startup for the last 11 years. So joining RIWI, it's been fairly recent. It's been about a week and a half now, going on to 2 weeks. The expectation was that we will be joining a larger firm that moved slower, but I don't think that that's the case. I think generally because of the new blood, let's say, that's been coming into the business over the last few years, it definitely feels like a very different organization than at least when I first heard of RIWI on paper many years back. We have a new chief product officer who is putting together, a roadmap that will kind of, as we develop that in the future, it will figure out how are we integrating the different pieces and realigning the organization to make use of the strengths that each unit brings. So I know we haven't really figured out the specifics yet to address on this call, but I'm extremely bullish and optimistic. As Greg mentioned, part of the transaction was funded by the proceeds of our sale. I do really believe in where we can go using the Theorem technology and a lot of the other existing products that can be blended together into one seamless end-to-end researcher solution.
Travis, go ahead if there's anything you want to add there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that because Theorem Reach has had such a small team, by the nature of it, Garrick's been doing things that, as a CEO, he shouldn't be doing, back office things that we can absorb. So I think another synergy that's going to come out of this integration is really freeing up the time of a lot of the Theorem Reach staff to get out and generate more revenue and create more efficiencies just through having more time.
Yeah, that makes sense. As an entity now, I would expect that you've increased your competitive advantage. And one of the questions came in is, your competitors like SurveyMonkey, YouGov, Ipsos, have you gained any competitive advantage over them here, or maybe describe any competitive advantage you had to begin with?
Sure. So let me start with, these are all very traditional survey type firms, right? And they've got a decent survey platform. They have access to a certain amount of audience. What's different about RIWI is, first of all, we support both the traditional quantitative-based survey, which everyone does, but we also have non-conscious. So what you think and what you feel. So what you feel is tracked through facial expression analysis, eye tracking, and so we can complement two different methodologies together to give a much better, much clearer, much more predictive answer to customers. So whether you look at YouGov or SurveyMonkey or Ipsos, they only do the traditional quant. So we have that competitive advantage. We also now have a broader reach as far as audience around the world. So, if you look at SurveyMonkey or YouGov or Ipsos may be a little bit more of an exception, but SurveyMonkey and a lot of them are much more traditionally North American audience. And we have a strong North American audience now with Theorem Reach, but RIWI has traditionally been also much more international and had a bigger international audience than North American audience. So we start to become more and more competitive at that level. Plus, we offer this additional functionality. Now, I will say, obviously, these are all much, much larger firms, a lot more resources, a lot more revenue. And, with that, they have some advantages. And they also have the disadvantage about they move slow, right? We're going to continue to move fast. We're going to continue to iterate. We're building a roadmap for the next number of years, but where we see the industry going, not where it is today. And I think you're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of movements by us over the next, 6, 12, 18 months that will start to give us more and more competitive advantage against these type of firms. But we don't see ourselves as just a survey firm. Again, we are trying to build the end-to-end supply chain of a platform, wrap around audience and partnerships and services around that as well.
I will also add that those three companies that you mentioned are also reliant on Theorem Reach's audience for part of their sampling. So right off the bat, we have an opportunity to turn them into clients of ours on the RIWI side, or potentially play with how margins and pricing are handled internally versus externally.
Fantastic. Greg, a sizable acquisition for a company of your size right now. What does this acquisition do as far as the rest of your M&A pipeline? Does this Does this encourage you to go faster, slower, or what happens next?
Yeah, so there's two limiting factors for our ability to go as fast as we'd like to go. One is access to capital, and the other one is just management attention and ensuring that when we make one of these acquisitions, we do it right. We do the proper diligence, and then we also do the proper integration. Because as many people have seen, I'm sure when you look at M&A can be a great value creator. It can also be a value destroyer if you don't integrate things properly, if you don't make sure that you keep employees culturally, make sure everything is synergistic. So, we are absolutely looking to go faster, right? We're continuously looking for more and more access to capital. Right now, we trade at called 2x revenue, maybe not as much right now because our stock hasn't moved quite as much as our revenue based on the acquisition, but I'm sure that will hopefully catch up with all of your help, shortly. But as that happens, right, we are absolutely looking to accelerate. We believe the market's in a consolidating state. There's a lot of valuations out there, a lot of value, I should say. There's thousands of market research firms, and if we can acquire more of them at sub 1x revenue or even half times revenue, if we can acquire them at 4 to 5 times EBITDA and grow RIWI that way, we can achieve our targets of being a $50 million company, sooner rather than later. But having access to capital and cost-effective capital is going to be the thing that we have to work out as much as we find acquisitions. But we do have a robust pipeline still.
Fantastic. Greg, as investors watching the business right now, what do you think are the key catalysts, or what metrics should we pay the most attention to, especially now as far as this acquisition? What should we watch for?
So I'm going to say, first of all, you won't see any results of this until we release all of 2024, which is in April next year, because this was closed in October, and the next quarter that comes out will be Q3. So unfortunately, unless we give guidance that when we release Q3, you won't actually get proper numbers for a while. But some of the catalysts are going to be revenue growth, right? Profitability. Those are going to always be the top two. Recurring revenue will be number 3 in that. So those are going to be the top 3. I think you're going to see, besides that, you may see more insider buying on shares, which I always think is a good leading indicator to things. Travis, Garrick, any other leading indicators that you see?
No, I think you've captured it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then just lastly, we covered a fair bit. A lot of people are familiar with the business already, but is there anything else that we may have missed, or any key message you want to make sure everybody walks away with today?
I think the key thing for us is, we said for a while, we play in a certain area and certain categories, and what we really need is scale. So right now, we've been building out the end-to-end supply chain. We're not quite there, but we've got large parts of it. But in order to really get the economies of scale, you need to get scale, right? You need to get bigger, deeper and deeper with individual customer segments, bigger and bigger in the audience. And so what this does is it helps us scale, and scale starts to accelerate over time. So you're going to start to find more and more revenue synergies and faster and easier and more cost-effective customer acquisition as we hit more scale, as we build a brand. Right now, people don't know RIWI. In a few places we go, and to be honest, we're always surprised when people say, "Oh, I've heard of RIWI," and we're like, "Really, you have?" Right? Because most people don't, and most people are like, "Is it RIWI? Is it RIWI? Is it RIWI? Like, what is it? What do you do?" Like, our name doesn't necessarily say what we are, right? And I think as we get scale and we get more brand recognition, customers will naturally start coming more and more to us. So you're going to start to see an acceleration of organic revenue, not just M&A growth. I think that will be the key. That will really become the jet fuel, because we've done okay organically. We've done okay with M&A. When the two of them are both firing, that's when the real growth and the real profitability will happen.
Fantastic. Well, this is great, Greg. Appreciate the time, appreciate the update. Garrick, Travis, also thank you for joining us today. We've been speaking with RIWI Corp CEO Greg Wong and the team. Symbol again, RIWI in the Venture Exchange. Greg, again, lastly, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to catching up when there's another sort of event to talk about.
Absolutely. Paul, actually, I see a few more questions that seem to have popped into the.
If you're willing to answer them, let's fire them off here. I've got one. Russell says, "Would you ever use shares for M&A?"
So the answer is yes, as long as we get the right valuation for it, right? So everything comes down to valuation. We are not looking to dilute unless we get the proper valuation. But if we get the proper valuation, then we would do it. And it always has to be by increasing revenue and profitability per share. So those are the two things that are required in order to issue shares: increase revenue and profitability by share, not in general, but per share. If we can achieve that, we're willing to do it.
Exactly the metric every investor should look at is on a per share basis. Paulo then asks a little bit to the same question. When do you expect to get cash flow positive, and what do you think of the share price?
I think every CEO in the world would say the same thing. We're not happy with our share price. We'd like to see it go up, right?
Mhm.
I do think that we doubled the size of the business and our share price went up 10%. So I'd like to see it go up a little bit more. When the share price is at a higher point and we feel we're getting at least a fair market value, then we could leverage our shares as currency. Right now, we don't feel we're getting proper valuation, so it's hard to do that. We have said that our goal is to be cash flow positive, at least on an operating level this year. So this quarter in Q4, we've said that I think repeatedly in our last couple of MD&As. Again, there may be some below the line stuff that may make some differences, but at least on above the line, we expect that to happen. And then as we get through those processes, continuously, even with organic growth, that should improve on a go-forward basis.
Mhm. And then a bit of a regulatory question here. From a regulatory standpoint, do you comply with cross-border data transfer restrictions?
We are GDPR compliant. We support, I can't remember the exact what it is, a California something
APA.
data. That's it. Yeah. So we're fully compliant with that as well. So overall, yes. When you look at different types of data, so if you look at standardized survey data, that's really easy, to be honest. When you look at the facial expression or facial recognition, we also comply with very specific ways, because when we bring in facial recognition, we've got to bring it in, process it, and then all that is discarded and destroyed. So we don't actually store PII in general. We are building some of our own panels as well through the TM Reach, where we will have some additional access to some PII. But again, everything is cross-border supported today.
Perfect. Greg, thanks for letting me ask the last few questions. I appreciate it. They came in a little bit late, but we managed to squeeze them in there. Once again, we've been speaking with CEO Greg Wong of RIWI Corp. Greg, thanks for joining us today, and we will catch up in the not too far off future.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Bye for now.